Welcome back to the start of Season 2 of The Quest, where we're at the Swansea.com stadium for our first game of European football. What do you mean we've got some explaining to do? Well, I suppose if you put it like that, we have. Okay, let's try and talk you through what has been a pretty eventful summer. We did a lot of soul searching at the end of last season. It went better than we could have expected. I think if we hadn't have taken Moyola Park up, if we'd have lost in those playoffs, we would absolutely have stuck around for a second, possibly even a third season. But as we did get the club promoted, as well as reaching that cup final, I did start to think about whether staying at Moyola Park might just be treading water, because we would not have had the budgets to have competed for promotion in the next division up straight away. I think it would have taken at least 2 seasons. And in a journeyman career where we're trying to find a club that we can take to a European final, well, I decided that we might need to be a little bit more risk-taking, a little bit more ambitious. So I let my contract wind down on the 31st of May when our contract expired. We left Moyola Park, albeit with a very heavy heart because we had somewhat fallen for the club, but we set about trying to find new employers. We had a couple of knockbacks. We had an interview with a club in Bulgaria's second division that looked like a really good setup. They were a side that used to be in the top flight, and they looked like they had decent budgets, decent infrastructure, and could have been a club that we could have done something with. But even though we went for an interview, they turned us down, unfortunately. But then we got a job offer out of the blue that, quite frankly, is very, very exciting. And here is that job offer. It's from Haverfordwest County in the Welsh top flight. I've not come to this decision easily. When our contract was running down at Moyola Park, I stopped playing the game for a full week. I'd recorded a couple of episodes ahead, which gave me a little bit of breathing space. And I didn't touch the game whilst I went back and forwards as to whether we should just leave at the end of our contract and head to pastures new, or whether we should try and take Moyola Park into the Northern Irish Premier Division, even though that might take us 3, 4, maybe even longer. Eventually, I decided to gamble and to move on, but this is a risk. Moyola Park had become a very safe job, I think. Having overachieved, got them promoted and got them to a cup final, I don't think we were facing the imminent sack, even if we'd not done very well in Season 2. This job, I think, is very sackable because it's at a very ambitious club. First of all, look at these budgets. My own wage or salary is going to be £600 per week. At Moyola Park, it was 40. At Moyola, we were trying to assemble a squad for under £100 a week. At Haverfordwest, we're going to have almost £6,000 per week, plus a transfer budget of £600,000. I'm already thinking we could afford to jettison some of that into the scouting budget and try and maybe scout the English and Scottish and Irish leagues, maybe even further afield as well, and see if we can bring in some good players. I've had a little look at the squad. It's not exactly brimming with players. I think a few must have come to the end of their contracts at the end of the last season and have left the club, and I don't think they've been doing a lot of business because their ex-manager, Tony Pennock, has walked out on the club. I can't see that he's actually been sacked. His contract just seemed to expire, and he's left. And he's not even branded as a manager, as a head of a youth development. He's certainly a way better coach than I am. But Rob Edwards, somebody who very kindly actually recorded a little bit of a video for me for a project that I was working on with Zealand. And he's actually an acquaintance of fellow Manager Seat creator JDFM, has come in with what can only be described as an offer that we just cannot turn down. £600,000 to spend on transfers, £6,000 a week to spend on wages. And the kicker, people, is that this club are already in European competition and our first game is in just 48 hours' time. Okay, I made a mistake. It's actually 24 hours' time, but the club that I'm now affectionately referring to as Haverford Quest, see what I did there, are going to be taking on Bosnian outfit Velaz Mostar in the Conference League first qualifying round. We're going to be away out in Bosnia, so we don't have a lot of time to get our feet under the table. We've got to assemble a tactic. We've got to appraise the squad. The squad is thin. We've got to try and start hunting around for some scouts, potentially some coaches as well. In a little over a month's time, they're going to be playing their first league fixture against Newtown, but we've also got friendlies to play as well as a two-legged affair to try and get us into the next qualifying round of the Europa Conference League. So, and go with me on this, I'm thinking of trying to keep things quite Moyola Parkish, in that we're going to try and design a system that is very simple. This club's got a little bit of transfer budget to spend. It's also got plenty of money still in the wage budget. They've got £5,740 to spend, and they're spending less than £2,500 on that. So if our scouts can find the right players, and remember, as a Llama, I don't use the player search function, so we are completely reliant on the scouts, of which they have one. I've just put an advert in the job centre to try and get some more in, but we should be able to hunt around for some players that might strengthen our squad. I've noticed that the previous administration has made one very obvious oversight. Their very best player is somebody called Dan Hawkins, who I think, for this level, could be outstanding. He can play anywhere across the central or attacking midfield areas. He's very quick, very fit, can dribble. The determination and the flair and the composure and the teamwork and the work rate and the passing, even the vision and the crossing are all absolutely wonderful. For some reason, they've decided not to register him for the Europa Conference League squad, and I can't, for the life of me, work out why that would be. I've tried to register them, but it's too late. It's the day before the game. At a push, I'm guessing if we make it to the second qualifying round, we might be able to register additional players. But that's a big if, because the Bosnian side that we're going to be facing are none too shabby. So we're going to be without our best player today. But I'm thinking of keeping things very simple. Not in a 4-4-2 this time. I think we might have the players that are more suited to a 4-3-3, but a very unspectacular 4-3-3, where we're not asking too much of the players. First thing to announce, the defence is very, very slow. I'm already inviting Elliot McKim over for a trial because I think he could get into this side. I've also invited Bobby Mack over for a trial. Not sure he could be a first choice striker for us, but I certainly think he could be a good squad player, and as bad as his personality is, he's like a son to me, so it would be nice to have him around. So let's guide you through our tactic and our players. In goal, we've got a reasonable option, I think. This is Luke Rees. I don't think he's going to be a stunning first choice keeper, but if we open the season with him between the sticks, I think that will be okay. It brands him as a backup, which leads me to believe they might have lost their first choice keeper at the end of their contract. But in defence, we've got a couple of names that might be familiar to lower league football fans. A right back, we have Jazz Richards, who used to play for Cardiff and Swansea, as well as Fulham, Huddersfield and Crystal Palace. He's been knocking around at Haverfordwest for a fair few seasons. Didn't get a stunning average rating last season, but I think old Jazz can hold up an end. On the other side, we're going to have Dylan Rees. Now, Dylan's right-footed. We don't really have a natural left-back unless we go hunting around in the youth sides. So we're going to be going with Dylan Rees today, but left-back is certainly on our shopping list to account for the fact that they're right-footed. I'm going to experiment with playing an inverted fullback, so they're going to drop in as almost like a third centre-half to try and give the team a little bit of a solid base. In defence, however, I think we've got one very good centre-half, and that is Maltese, not international, has never played for them, but Luke Tabone? Luke Taboni? Luke Taboni. Not sure, but very, very good in the air, very strong, 6'4", good heading and tackling, determination, bravery, aggression. As a head it and kick it centre-half, I think Luke's looking very good. I'd like to bring in Elliot McKim, potentially to play as the left-sided one. Today, we're going with Morgan, Thomas, Sadler. Not a team of solicitors, but instead our centre-half, right-footed, unfortunately. And again, not another quick player, so everybody, I think, in our defence is going to have trouble recovering against pace apart from Dylan Rees. He's the only one that seems to have a little bit of pace and acceleration about them. So to try and protect that somewhat ponderous back line, we're going to be playing an anchorman. This is Kyle Patton. He cannot play as a defensive midfielder, but he can play as a central defender, and he can play as a central midfielder. And I think he borderline has the attributes to play as a DM. In central midfield, we're going to have another security player, a ball-winning midfielder. This is Hope Akpan, another player who has spent a little bit of time in England, came through at Everton, played for Crawley, Reading, Blackburn, Burton, Bradford, before heading out to Finland and then to Haverfordwest. Again, another player that maybe didn't pull up any trees with their average rating last season, but in the centre of the park, I think they look fairly combative, and they will be playing alongside 24-year-old Northern Irishman. Thank you. Harry Franklin, another player who's got some decent physicals apart from the strength. It's very, very Northern Irish from what we saw last season, but is determined, has got some flair, some first touch. We're going to give them a central midfield role with licence to attack and support the forward players in this game against Velaz this afternoon. We've also got another player from the English lower leagues. This is Martel Taylor-Crossdale. Quick, reasonable finisher, good at long shots, nice flair again. But I think Taylor-Crossdale will be a player that will be involved for us even after we brought some signings in. Up front today, we'd actually like to be playing Kinsella, but unfortunately, because we can't register Dan Hawkins, we need Kinsella to go and play on the wings. We'll show you Kinsella last, because that player is Bobby Mack 2.0. And genuinely, I swear even in appearance, this is Bobby Mack 2.0. But before we get to Kinsella, up front today, we're going to be playing James West. Now, don't get too excited about James West. I don't imagine we're going to be seeing James West much this season. James West is only 16 years old after all, has got absolutely no strength, runs with the ball down the right despite having no ability to play on the right hand side of the pitch, topples over a lot but has got a reasonable jumping reach and is determined. Is another player with flair, is aggressive, has got a good first touch, can't hit a pig's backside with a banjo, which is exactly what you want in a striker. Can also play as an AM with passing of 4. So don't get too excited about James West, but James West is just filling a gap today because we don't have very many options up front. I would like to be playing Kinsella as the striker. Brace yourselves. This is Bobby Mack 2.0, a 16-year-old Irish player who has got pace and acceleration, dribbling and finishing. The first touch is good. The flair is there again. And if we compare the two, I smell a little bit of skullduggery, if I'm honest. I think Bobby Mack heard the news that we were leaving Moyola Park and was crestfallen, bereft, if you will. So he slim-shaded his hair, snuck over to Wales, made his way into the Haverfordwest squad so that he could continue his development under us. Because honestly, this is a doppelganger with a slightly bleached haircut. So Bobby Mack, meet Kian Kinsella, who is going to be, I think, a pretty decent player for us in our time at Haverfordwest. Okay, it may be that we've had a stroke of luck on game day because we've just had it drop into our inbox that we can make one change to our registered squad for the first qualifying round. So we might be able to get Dan Hawkins in, which could be absolutely huge. If we could play him, then we could completely change our front three lineup and maybe be a bit more potent from our attacks. Let's get into the old squad and see whether he has indeed been registered. He has. This could be huge, you know, by the way. This is by far our best player, but we can now get into the team. We can move Taylor-Crossdale over to the left. We can move Kinsella to be the advanced forward. Hawkins is just going to be a winger on support. I think could be an absolutely invaluable supply line. I think Kinsella is going to be a good option as a striker for us. And even as the inside forward, I think Taylor-Crossdale trying to drift in from the flank and get on the end of the delivery that Hawkins is putting into the box could be another weapon for us as well. What with Franklin rushing on from midfield, I think we might be able to cause some teams some problems in the Welsh top division. Whether we can cause problems for a Bosnian side in European competition, I'm not so sure. I guess we best get out there and find out. Okay, we are underway playing our first game of European football as part of the quest. This is the name of the game, by the way. We wanted to try and make it all the way to a European final, managing clubs from nations that have never appeared in a European final before. It seems like we are a goal down after a minute and 20 seconds. I think this Bosnian side might be a little bit good. They've picked the ball up in midfield, done about 3 pirouettes, then played a nice little reverse pass through, and they've slotted it past our goalkeeper. And we have a little bit of work to do, shall we say. We've got to get our feet under the table a little bit. We need to bring in some signings. We need to strengthen the squad. In fact, I would say that the rest of this first half has not gone too badly. We've actually had 5 shots, 2 of which have been on target. We've not created any highlights of note, but neither of our opponents, remember, this is going to be a 2-legged affair. So if we can just cling in this game until the second leg, we might be able to get them back to Wales and maybe spring an upset, although we've given the ball away in defence. They're coming forward again. They've got the ball with this player that seems to be doing all the damage there, dropping off from the front. We don't play the highest of lines because of our quite slow defence, so we're camped out on the edge of our box, and this is a very long highlight, by the way. They are just passing the ball, stroking it around at will. I guess positively, you could say we've got numbers back. Negatively, you could say none of them have put a challenge in about 2 minutes of play. And before we get to half-time, we're trying to play out from the back again. Richard sends it to Justin Hawkins. Franklin gets it through to little Kinsella. And he has had his first little go at goal. He just pulled off the defender and then sent a little sighter that's just sent a warning to our opponents that we may be a goal down, but we're still in this game. And we are underway for the second half. By the way, in our next episode, we will be coming back for that second leg. We're going to show you how we get on during our European campaign, as brief as it may be. I'm hoping that by the time that game comes around in a week or so's time, we might have already done a little bit of transfer business, as we rely on Reese for a little bit of acrobatics to tip the ball around the post. Velez have got themselves a corner, which we need to try and clear. Let's generously say the keeper knew what he was doing there, and it was a firm punch. We'll try and encourage the players again. If we could get an equaliser out here. I know away goals don't mean anything anymore, but going into that second leg on level terms would be an absolute tonic for the players. Kyle Patton, I don't think, is going to be able to carry on. He's been injured for quite some time. The other change I think we're going to make is I might just change around the inside forward and the striker. Neither of them have had a great time so far. We don't really have great options on the bench. Let's see whether just rotating them gives us a little bit more potency going into the final, 12 minutes of the game. Here is Kinsella, installed on the left wing now. Plays it back to his centre half. Into Basham, who's just come on. Here's Justin Hawkins. Into Taylor Crossdale. And the Haverford Quest era is underway. And moving Taylor Crossdale to be the central striker and getting Kian Kinsella out onto the left seems to have paid dividends already. There's Hawkins, just outside the area. We've got a goal out in Bosnia to tie it up at 1-1. If we could just keep this tight until the final whistle, and we will perhaps just see whether we can make any final changes, as a whole host of players all seem to be struggling. Gaz Williams is a 15-year-old right back. Well, guess what, Gaz? Get warmed up. You're going on for Jazz. We're going Gaz for Jazz. And then over at left back, Ben Thomas has got low determination and is 16 years old, but can tackle. Ben, you're going to be making your European debut for Dylan Reese, who's been booked and is looking very, very tired. Is that going to be enough for us to just see out this tie? You can see by the match momentum, we've had a tough game, I think. We've come up against superior opponents. And as we tick towards the 90-minute marks, those opponents are coming at us again. This is the player that's looked very, very lively. I'm not even going to begin to try and pronounce it. But he's got the ball into the box. And just before the 90-minute mark, they are 2-1 up. But positives. I've seen enough in this game to think we might have a chance in that second leg. And certainly, if we can get some strong players into this squad with the very, very generous budgets that we've been given, within 2-3 years, could we be challenging TNS for the Welsh Top Flight title? That would be an absolute dream. It would be a boost to our reputation. It would mean that we'd be the winners of a domestic title, and we could go and hunt for further jobs in 2-3 seasons time that might be at a club that we could do something with long term and try and take to a major European final. So the turnaround is going to be tight. We've got a week until that second leg, and in the meantime we've got to go and get thumped by Bolton, it would seem. Maybe we might see whether we can rearrange that friendly, because I'm not sure playing an English League One side is the smartest thing we can do as we try and get ready for our European second leg. But let me know down in the comments, what do you think about the Welsh Premier Division as our new destination? Is it a league you've managed in? Have you got any tips? How long did it take you to try and overthrow Total Network Solutions? Or am I deluding myself? Is that something that you can't help to do in Wales? Also, let me know what you think about these budgets. Is that going to give us enough to compete at a higher level? Will it give us enough to qualify for the Conference League this season? There are so many questions. Give me your thoughts down in the comments, and we will see you for our next episode of Haverford Quest in just a couple of days' time.